Hey guys, it's Will. BigBear AI might still be early here. This is a stock we've been watching, and we might have a lead on this one. But ultimately, today's Monday open session was a little red. We got some good dip opportunities that did show up, but it was a little bit of a chaotic start to the market. How many of you guys saw that? Hard to keep up with the rally in space tech, the oil market's growing, the AI market's consolidating, but we were trading BigBear AI this morning and it hasn't moved much yet. Portfolio's up just about 0.73% today. But we traded and entered a trade into BigBear AI like we do a lot of times in the mornings. If you want to see the exact entries and exits, it's in the second link description to tune on in to our daily live trading sessions there. Now let's jump into BigBear AI. This company has seen their trend start to develop really since about January, beginning of January here. They started to find a bottom around this level. Let's see where that was on the true price. $5.30 was the level they started to bounce at, continuing up and then finding trend, kind of continuing this upward trend. This morning, we saw them kind of validate, sell back down to this $6 level. And at that $6 support is where we've been really looking for them to hold. So we saw them hold, we saw them get up into some new levels over the last few weeks, and they're currently approaching this level here, which is a previous resistance around 640, 650 right here is where they're kind of approaching. You can see that's the next kind of target for them. Now, we entered into the 2x of BigBear AI. Why would we trade them? There's a lot of technical indicators that kind of indicates maybe this is the trend. They continue up and potentially break back above that $6.50 level. But there's also some, larger scale things to watch with them right now. For example, one thing we've been watching is going to be that their big picture thesis is kind of developing. It's taken a little more time to develop. This company is not really a current growth play right now. It's just been kind of a setup story where they've taken some time. The company still appears to be about one, maybe 2 quarters away from showing really meaningful or visible revenue acceleration, because assuming the execution that they have does improve and some of the initiatives they've taken, like for example acquiring that company Ask Sage, would make sense that that translates into more contracts, more revenue, and it shows up on their income statement. So this is kind of like this is a stock that's really over the last year, despite growing, over 100%, we saw it go from, $1 a share to by the end of the year, we saw $8, $9, $10 at one point. So it's holding around 6 right now. So it's still, about a 4x stock since, 2024, end of 2024 into 2025. Even so, with that, 4x, it's been about positioning early, validating later. They did have more deployments of their Veriscan technology. They work with TSA, they work at the airports, not specifically, but that's one of the areas they work in, which is this efficient traveler authentication. It's called the Veriscan technology that scans the face of people that come in and out of the US through the airports, through the terminals, and they even took a unique approach to the market that's different than any other companies, which is they didn't go just TSA, they actually went directly to the airlines. So if you go fly with, let's say, Delta, there's some other airlines that they're deployed at the gates of these airlines, then you'll notice that they have the technology integrated there. So millions of people, getting scanned there. Now, in that, we haven't seen their revenue increase. And so the revenue kind of has missed. In fact, it's down about 20% year over year. They did come in with a positive net income last quarter, despite having the setup for a large acquisition. But here's the thing. I don't know how it's going to price in, but they had a $250 million acquisition of a company, Ask Sage, which already has various government contracts related to AI. And so this company, they do the AI side, and they also just partner with the New England Patriots for potentially having the AI-enabled insights to improve operational performance, commercial decision making. So AI potentially at the maybe front of the stadiums, maybe Gillette Stadium, something like that. And they've also partnered with other company or other teams like the Washington Redskins or Washington Commanders and others. But they've really deployed in a large amount of airports. We saw them get into, Chicago O'Hare for sure, but we saw them also get into multiple airports. You got Nashville there, but ultimately it was a large list of companies, including Dallas and JFK and Denver and Los Angeles International Airport, and very large deployments, and getting their Veriscan technology, their biometric scanners out there, has been kind of not a front-loaded immediate profit type of situation. In fact, we've seen their balance sheet increase, but their revenue hasn't. So again, cash going up, none of the new contracts, none of the new dozen deployments have really showed up on their revenue. The other thing to note is that they are deploying pretty heavily over in the Panama Canal, and that they have some not just border protection, but that they are deploying some monitoring systems over in the Panama Canal. They recently partnered with Palantir over the last year and a half, and also partnered with Redwire. But when you're looking at the computer vision, you got the Veriscan, but you also have the Arcus, which it tracks all of the ships that are going in and out of the ports, which tie in pretty well with some of their recent deals. So that gives you alerts, AI analysis that shows when different ships are going in and out, or what they're doing, where they're coming from, how they're operating. And we did see some of those partnerships come out in the last few months. So anyway, what that means with their current pricing, right? There's some key catalysts. We just saw them come out with a $250 million acquisition, which, again, not to stay too much in the news here, but this acquisition happened just right around earnings, but after earnings. So they spent $250 million in cash to acquire this company. They might have a large negative net income. I don't know how that's structured around the financials. It might not show up that way, but $250 million they paid in cash. This company, Ask Sage, they're essentially buying their way in. Their acquisition strategy is to buy different companies that give them the infrastructure to secure their AI advantage. Now, their current revenues don't reflect that, but if Ask Sage was already on track to do $25 million a year, that's what they're anticipating in ARR, meaning annual recurring revenue, and they have 100,000 users across 16,000 government teams and hundreds of commercial organizations, and Ask Sage acquired them, then it's quite possible that in that acquisition we would see the contracts and revenue show up in the next quarter, this next earnings, or after that. So maybe the quarter after that. So to keep that in mind, there's some news kind of working for them. You got the government defense contract spending going up. You got their deployments out there despite not seeing more revenue increases. And then you got some global events. You got the with the real-time data, the security and all the logistics they're setting up, this predictive analytics where they can scan people coming in and out, they fit the case perfectly for the deployment of technology that tracks for the World Cup, because the World Cup is coming in. You're gonna have hundreds of millions of people coming in to the U.S. I don't know about hundreds of millions, possibly hundreds of millions coming to the U.S. to experience the World Cup. So the only thing that I'm watching, you got some things working for them in their favor, potentially as catalysts to help them, continue to bounce this 200-day moving average that they notoriously seem to bounce. Right here, you can see this level from $1 a share. And I do have, just to disclose, long-term positions at $2.80. But the short term, we just entered a trade on BBAI here. And it's possible we see something like this. Some move up to here, this $10 price point. It's a 60% increase. And that would be another kind of rally up into these $10 ranges, 66% increase, which would be over on BAIG, which is the 2x. That would be 100% plus gain on BigBear AI. So it's a catalyst that could happen is that they see World Cup do really well. They see the Ask Sage come in with more revenue that gets to show up on BigBear's income statement because of the acquisition, but it's not a guarantee, and we don't know how long it's going to take. And so, since the revenue's been flat, even a little bit disappointing, and they're kind of like the growth hasn't really showed up on the revenue, more on like the fundamental side. The risk profile is still fairly high because it's not confirmed that they're going to see that revenue increase as a result of all the recent infrastructure that they've put out. But it is still clear that they have put considerable effort, considerable amount of hard to deploy infrastructure into the airports, into TSA, into the different airlines, and positioning themselves nicely for the future. It does help that their CEO was previously U.S. Acting Secretary of U.S. Department of Homeland Security, because that's going to be a key connection for them to grow. And as you know, the CEOs are oftentimes the deal makers. Mac Landon also was the Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, where he focused on counterterrorism, border security, and immigration enforcement, which also ties very well into their thing. And so, we saw BigBear at the airports. My wife's from Argentina, and when we came into the U.S., or we went through the airports and were scanned by BigBear, it's very intelligent. I don't think she had to go through anything. She just, shows her green card, right? She's not even a citizen. And they're keeping the analysis or those, borders very clean. It hasn't been, messier. It's actually been much easier and faster for people to go in and out. Before, you might get interrogated. You might, have more, of a friction. But ultimately, with the VeriScan technology, you have, kind of this quick AI. It's like, does this all match up? Is there anything suspicious? Yes or no? No. Okay, like let them go. They're good to go. And that type of analytics with the scale of passengers that come in and out of the U.S. would drastically save the U.S. a lot of money. In fact, TSA, you could see some of their recent publications are actually going for this exact type of technology. One of the recent requests for information, which was estimated to be potentially up to $5.4 billion from a .gov article here from Homeland Security, TSA, was saying that they're looking for AI and machine learning driven threat detection, advanced accessibility property, body scanning, alarm resolution, and biometric ID verification tools. So that's like the facial scanners, and cloud-based command control dashboards, real-time analytics, predictive analytics. And this is kind of exactly what you would see when you go to what they say they do at BigBear. And so with the connections there, I think that one of the people on the board was previously the or someone that works at BigBear is on the board of TSA, something like that, in a very large role, which was interesting as well. So anyway, that's why we're watching them in the fundamental side. The short-term analysis, again, we're in a trade we just entered this morning. Nothing crazy. It hasn't moved much since entry, but we're risking, just a little bit here. I think our position's small, relatively small, around maybe $5,000 position, very small. But looking for potentially a 10% gain on the short-term trade on BAIG, which would be a 5% swing upwards on BigBear AI. So that would be a 10% gain. We did a limit order this morning in our market live session. Very important, as we start kind of waiting for that confirmation or having a very small position here, kind of nothing more, is to really manage the risk properly, but also look for limit orders rather than just a market buy. When you're trading a 2x or a 3x of any stock, if you just do a market order, you're going to pay a premium. So we kind of were patient this morning, waited for a nice limit order below where it was, and then it did fill. And then it's been volatile this morning, but really it's just kind of holding around entry as we look for a potential 10% gain $500 to $700 trade potential over the next day or so. So we'll be watching into the next day. So for those of you guys that would like to learn how to invest in these companies and do exactly what we did this morning, or how this wasn't, nothing's happened here, but we did have some 10-20% trades actually on APLD last week in the data center markets. Quantum markets, we just went to a conference last week as we stay up to date there. In the space tech market as well, even got some friends that work in the space tech. Planet Labs had a nice contract today that we'll get you an update on as well. But if you'd like to stay up to date, join a like-minded community of investors and get our daily live trading Monday through Friday. The lifetime access is going away soon, and it's in the January sale. So if you want to grab the daily live trading, it's going to be the second link in the description down below to join. Would love to see you there at Market Open. You get this whole community here. You get some of the targets for the week. We had some targets come out for APLD that were up into bullish targets. I mean, we're bullish about $39 to $45. Mid-range was low to mid-30s. At the time, they were at $24 a share, and APLD did end up making those levels. In fact, it actually jumped to those low 30s to mid-30s and currently is sitting around about $36 a share. So $10 increase, over a 40% gain on the stock. Not due to, but in part we were able to catch it with projection. So if you like those targets as well, you get access in StockMate. Again, the second link below. We also use AI to do projections. If you want to get your hands on those and get StockMate for free as a bonus, that's the first link in the description down below. Appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.